Ukrainian forces scored a major victory, recapturing a key city in an area Russian President Vladimir Putin claimed to have annexed just a day before. Here's the latest.
Russian President Vladimir Putin may have celebrated the illegal annexation of Ukrainian territory in Red Square, whipping up the crowd over his barefaced land grab.
Мы стали сильнее.
We have become stronger together, he said. The truth is on our side. But the battlefields of Ukraine tell a different truth.
Це буде Україна.
Today, Ukrainian troops raised the flag on the outskirts of Lyman, claiming to recapture the strategically important city in Donbass, the very region Putin now calls his own. In fact, not one of the territories is under full Russian control. Frustrated on the front lines, the Russian military has taken aim at civilian targets. Ukrainian officials say the multiple rocket attack in Zaporizhia on Friday that killed at least 30 people is a war crime. This is what the consequences of Russia's land grab look like, a deadly attack on a civilian convoy of families that were just trying to provide help to loved ones. Victoria had just stepped away from the convoy for a break, only to return to find her boss among the dead. She describes seeing a boy die with his mother trying to save him. It was complete hysteria, she said. You can't believe how terrifying it was. They had come to help others, not to sacrifice their lives trying to reach them.
The local community comes together to support a Fargo man working to regain his health. That's up next.